The air around the rusted rails of Auschwitz Birkenau does not move freely. It clings. Survivors who returned decades after liberation struggled to name what they felt, because it was not merely memory nor imagination. They described it as pressure, as if the ground itself retained a pulse, a low vibration left behind by bodies reduced to smoke. This was never a place of death alone. It was a factory designed to erase existence so thoroughly that even grief would have nowhere to land. The camp today appears silent, but silence here is deceptive. It is the same silence that once followed the opening of gas chamber doors, after the screaming stopped, and before the ovens roared. Those who walk through the gate bearing the lie, Arbeit macht frei, understand, often too late, that the phrase was not irony, but strategy. Hope was part of the mechanism. Hope kept people calm, compliant, moving forward. The Nazis understood that terror alone exhausts itself. Order, routine, and false reassurance could kill far more efficiently. At its operational peak, Auschwitz did not resemble chaos. It resembled administration. Timetables, quotas, ledgers. The murder of 10,000 human beings per day required not rage, but coordination. Before this machinery existed, there were ordinary lives. Not symbols, not victims. Lives with texture, smell, weight. In towns across Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, and Germany, Jewish families lived within the rhythms of work, school, love, and boredom. Ben Lesser remembered his childhood not through trauma at first, but through sweetness. The metallic rustle of tinfoil around chocolate wafers shaped like animals, produced in his father's factory. Memory clung to taste because taste was safe. It was not yet political. That is how quickly normalcy dissolves, first quietly, then all at once. The shift did not announce itself as annihilation. It arrived dressed as regulation. Jewish schools closed temporarily. Businesses were reassigned. Identification papers were updated. Then trucks came, not with weapons at first, but with clipboards. Officials cataloged possessions with clinical precision. Gold, rings, watches, teeth later. The stripping of dignity preceded the stripping of life. Violence followed soon after, not as necessity, but as demonstration. Lesser never forgot the sound of an infant's skull hitting wood, the deliberate swing of a soldier's arms, the casualness of the act. This was not frenzy, it was instruction. Terror taught by example spreads faster than any order. Across occupied territories, entire populations were trained to understand that resistance was not merely dangerous, it was futile. In forests outside towns, people were forced to dig trenches they immediately recognized as graves. Thousands were shot standing shoulder to shoulder, falling forward on neighbors still breathing. Those buried alive clawed upward until the earth collapsed again. In ghettos like Bochnia, bodies were stacked, soaked in gasoline, and ignited in public. Fire was not only a method of disposal, it was theater, a warning. The trains came next. Cattle cars sealed from the outside, 80 or more bodies compressed into wooden boxes designed for livestock. 3 days without air, water, or sanitation. Children suffocated standing upright. The dead were not removed, they became furniture. Survivors later learned that this was intentional. Corpses absorbed moisture and stabilized the living. Even here, efficiency mattered. Arrival at Birkenau was always at night. Darkness disorients, floodlights blinded, dogs barked. Orders were screens in languages many did not understand. This confusion narrowed perception, forcing obedience. Then came the selection. A single man in a pristine uniform, white gloves, a relaxed posture. Joseph Mengele did not shout, he gestured. A finger left, a finger right. Labor or death. No examination, no conversation. Children, the elderly, the sick, gone within minutes. Families disintegrated instantly, without ceremony. Survivors later said the most unbearable sound was not screaming, but the absence of it, when realization spread too fast for reaction. Inside the camp, identity was dismantled methodically. Hair shaved, names erased, numbers burned into flesh, clothing replaced with rags stolen from the dead. Hunger was constant, but hunger was not the goal. Weakness was. Starvation narrowed thought, crushed memory, reduced resistance to instinct. Men became Musulmaner, not religious, but hollow, living bodies already preparing for death. Guards understood that once someone reached this state, punishment was unnecessary. Nature would finish the work. Violence inside the camp was random by design. Arbitrary cruelty dissolves logic.
One could survive a beating for looking away, another could die for looking too long. Public hangings forced prisoners to witness death as spectacle, training them to associate obedience with survival. Lesser remembered taking lashes meant for his uncle. Blood soaked his legs, which he was ordered to stand straight, salute, and thank the officer. Gratitude was compulsory. Humiliation was complete. Beyond forced labor, Auschwitz was also a laboratory. Medicine, stripped of ethics, became an extension of ideology. In Dachau, prisoners were submerged in ice water to chart the exact moment the human body surrendered to cold. Others were placed in low-pressure chambers simulating high altitude until lungs ruptured and brains hemorrhaged. At Ravensbrück, women had bones shattered and wounds infected deliberately. Glass and bacteria pressed into flesh to test battlefield treatments. Many died not from experiment, but from neglect afterward. In Auschwitz, Mengele's obsession with twins produced a catalog of mutilation so precise it resembled bookkeeping. Children were killed to compare organs side by side, life reduced to specimen. None of this occurred in isolation. German universities collaborated, pharmaceutical companies supplied compounds, reports were typed, reviewed, archived. This was not madness, it was structure. The most disturbing truth is not that monsters existed, but that professionals adapted. As the war turned, the regime attempted erasure. Mass graves were reopened, bodies burned. Prisoners forced to destroy evidence until they themselves were shot. Yet even destruction left residue. Bone fragments in soil, ash in rivers, trauma in memory. Liberation did not end suffering. Starved bodies could not tolerate abundance. Many died after eating freely for the first time. Lesser held his cousin as life faded, victory arriving too late. Survival brought guilt heavier than chains. Why me? Why not them? An entire generation of artists, engineers, thinkers, gone. Smoke carried potential as well as flesh. Decades later, survivors returned. Not for closure, for warning. They walked the same paths, hearing echoes of childhood songs once shared by victims and bystanders alike. One survivor met a former member of the Hitler Youth. Both remembered the same melody about birds carrying messages from parents. The realization was devastating. Humanity had been shared once. It had been learned and unlearned. As survivors vanish, memory becomes fragile. Museums preserve objects, but objects cannot testify. The danger is not denial alone, but fatigue, indifference, the slow erosion of empathy that begins when horror feels distant. Auschwitz does not exist to explain the past. It exists to interrogate the present. Understanding this history is like leaning over a deep well. The darkness you see is not empty. It reflects you back to yourself. And the question it asks is not what they did, but what any society might do when conscience becomes optional, obedience becomes virtue, and silence becomes survival.